2027 quarterback Peter Bourque's recruitment's been heating up recently. We're going to take a look at him right now. 6'4", 190 pounds from Tabor Academy, Massachusetts. You guys let me know what you think about him, any other players you want me to take a look at. I actually had one of my subscribers reach out not too long ago for me to take a look at. I think he just picked up a Michigan crystal ball, also crystal ball to Penn State. You know, at this point in the recruitment, sophomores in high school, rising juniors, not going to get too caught up on these commitment statuses. Just because it's so far, you know, we're still 15 months away from when these kids actually sign. There's so much that can happen, both on the football field and off, to really get caught up in where they say they're going to go in 2027. You know, that's a ways off. The word's going to be so much different. Anyways, at this point in these kids' recruiting cycles, we always want to make the case for them, right? We're trying to have a bigger recruiting board, and then by the time we get into the junior year film, we can start kind of narrowing it down and start convincing ourselves why not. But right now, what I like about Peter Bourque, I think this kid's got a really good arm. You know, pushes the ball down the field really easily. Just a playmaker, I think. Just a playmaker. Really like the way he pushes the ball down the field. Yeah, really good athlete. Also, this is the thing about Massachusetts football. You know, very generally, Massachusetts football is regarded as a bit lower level of competition. You know, a lot of the quarterbacks we've watched in this 27 class so far. You know, we watched Jace Johnson playing against South Georgia's best. We watched Teddy Gerard playing against Atlanta's best. Not going to be the same caliber of players that Peter Bourque's going to be going up against, but at the same time, also doesn't have the same caliber of players wearing the same color jersey as him. I think that we can evaluate the quarterback stuff, the arm talent, the same way that we can evaluate the arm talent in any other part of the country. You know, good throw in Massachusetts is a good throw in Georgia, is a good throw in China. It's just more some of this athleticism, I think, is going to look a bit better than it would against stiffer competition. So I think this kid's got a really good arm for sure. You know, that translates. Just some of this athleticism stuff might not carry quite as well to the next level as the, you know, defenders get a bit better. You know, watching Jared Curtis's highlights, man, kid's got such a good arm. You know, that translates. I don't think his athleticism is going to quite translate as much, but I'll tell you what does translate: throwing kids out of the breaks, right? This is going to be well touted at. This is going to be a very big throw at every level of high school, at every level of college football. Right out of the break, man. This has got something on it. You know, we saw some of these slant routes, a lot of velocity on those. This one, man, is just hummed in there. And it's not so much just the arm talent that I like on this throw, but the anticipation as well. You know, this one hits the kid. I think this ball was released before this receiver even turned around. Receiver's not even in his break yet, and the ball's out, actually. So we talk about throwing guys out of breaks. This was thrown before he was even breaking. Really nice ball on that one, you know. Again, we don't have to see that for a sophomore in high school, but seeing it when a player's this young, when he's this early in his recruitment, you know, very exciting stuff with that kind of throw. But that's not going to get you solely recruited. You know, you have to have the traits. That'll get you recruited, but by the likes of Michigan, by the likes of Penn State, we have to be convinced on the traits also, right? The arm strength, the athleticism, the frame. At 6'4", really like that frame. Dude, this kid's got an arm, you know. I was just saying it before, but I'm meaning it now. This is a really good throw. Hits him in stride downfield on a dime also. You know, this ball is not a whole lot of air under that. Really like seeing that on these downfield throws. A lot of these high school quarterbacks, you know, they'll just have to lace them in, put a lot more air under it. You know, this kid's got a real arm. It's a dot. You know, I was kind of surprised to learn, you know, I definitely had this kid as a baseball player just based on this release here. You know, this almost looks like a shortstop. You know, this quick RPO turned into actually a lacrosse player. So I guess that's what you get in Massachusetts. You know, it's less baseball players, more lacrosse players. You know, when we watch a lot of these quarterbacks in high school in Georgia, Florida, you're so used to like taking a look at their 24/7 page and then finding out that they're also either baseball players, basketball players. I guess in the Northeast you're going to run into more lax players, but you know, I can't really speak to how the athleticism in lax translates to the football field. You know, not a lax guy, but really good arm, I think, with Peter Bourque. I try not to have too much conversations about the footwork and maybe some of the finer points of playing quarterback, just because that's stuff that gets worked on at the next level, when they have quarterback coaches in their ears and all that. But footwork looks pretty clean to me. Sometimes you watch high school kids, Jace Johnson specifically, like you see the flashes of him really drive the ball with the lower body, but sometimes you'll see him get a bit sloppy outside of the pocket or even inside the pocket. The feet just get all over the place and the ball just isn't driven as well. I think with Peter Bourque, you're getting a dude, at least from what I've noticed on this highlight tape. Again, it is a highlight tape, but you're noticing, at least I'm noticing, very consistent footwork. The ball's just driven on every time. Haven't seen that many clips where it looks like the ball's trailing because he's not generating that power from the lower body. Talk about throwing the football, yeah, it's with your right arm, but it's also with your 2 feet. Think about how big your thigh muscles are, your lower body is. You generate way more power with your lower body than you do with the upper body. You'll see a lot of kids, man, in high school, got really good arms, just don't do a great job of keeping their feet consistent. I haven't noticed one rep where Bourque is kind of all over the place. Looks very look at this. When the pocket's clean, that's all well and good. That's kind of easy to do. But when you got dudes in your face like this and you're able to, damn, this is a fucking good throw. Oh my god. Look at this. When you got dudes in your face and you're able to keep your footwork consistent, drive the ball down the field, hit the dude over the shoulder, almost a touchdown. Really nice throw. So I think you see a lot of advanced stuff for a sophomore in high school, pretty consistent. You guys let me know what you think. I'm not a quarterback coach, but thanks for watching. Really good football player.